Can I ask you something personal right off the bat? Um, when was the last time you actually woke up feeling rested? Like not just functional, but genuinely refreshed and ready to take on the day?
Oh man, yeah. That is a question that just hits right in an uncomfortable spot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's so real. And honestly, for I'd say a lot of people listening right now, it might take a minute to even remember the last time that actually happened.
Because I think, so many of us have quietly accepted this bone deep exhaustion as just our new normal, especially once we cross that 50-year mark.
Yeah, we just brush it off completely.
We do. We tell ourselves, well, I'm just getting older or, I'm carrying a lot right now.
Hmm.
We just assume this is how life feels now.
Yeah.
But today, we are here to say that absolutely does not have to be your story. So, welcome to Thrive After 50 Living.
That acceptance, normalizing feeling terrible is probably the single biggest roadblock to actually enjoying this phase of life because it stops us from looking under the hood to see what's actually misfiring.
Exactly. And that is exactly what we're doing today. We're going to unpack the actual biological, the hormonal and psychological mechanisms that are just draining your battery.
We've got some incredible data today, too.
We really do. We have clinical data from the National Institute on Aging, some really great geriatric insights from AARP, and specialized endocrinology research from Meaty Health. And we're looking right past that lazy myth that you're just getting older.
Right, because it is a myth.
It is.
Mm.
We want to uncover what is actively happening at a cellular level, and more importantly, we're going to build a very specific action plan to get your energy back.
I think the most crucial starting point here is defining our terms. Because in the medical community, there is a massive physiological difference between normal sleepiness and clinical fatigue.
Oh, wait, let me stop you right there, because I use those words interchangeably all the time.
Most people do.
Right, like if I'm sleepy, I assume I'm fatigued. So what is the actual difference?
Well, think about the cellular energy in your body, specifically ATP, which is basically the energy currency of your cells. Okay. Normal sleepiness is just a temporary depletion. You push yourself hard, your brain built up a chemical called adenosine, which creates sleep pressure, and you feel tired.
Which is supposed to happen, right?
Exactly. It's totally natural. And here's the key. You go to sleep, your body clears out that adenosine, your cells replenish their ATP, and you wake up restored. That's sleepiness.
Okay, so then what is fatigue?
Fatigue is a systemic failure of that restorative process.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You can sleep for 10 hours, but because of an underlying mechanism, maybe it's oxygen deprivation or hormonal imbalance or inflammation, your cells are not recharging.
So you're just stuck on empty.
Right. It's this pervasive lack of energy that limits your cognitive and physical function, completely regardless of how much time you actually spend in bed.
Okay, that makes so much sense.
Ah,
So fatigue isn't just the gas tank being empty. It's like the body's check engine light flashing, telling you that the fuel line itself is broken.
that's a great way to visualize it. And I think this leads us to bust a massive age myth right out of the gate.
Let's do it.
There is this really pervasive cultural idea that as we get older, our brains and bodies just naturally need less sleep. Like you just naturally sleep less.
I mean, I have totally fallen for that myth.
Oh, we all have.
We're so conditioned by this image of, our grandparents waking up at 4 a.m. to drink black coffee and read the paper. So we just assume that's the biological trajectory.
But the geriatric data absolutely refutes that. Older adults still require 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep every single night for baseline neurological maintenance.
Wait, really? 7 to 9 hours doesn't change.
It does not change. It is a really dangerous assumption to think it does, because if you are in bed for 8 hours, but you are waking up feeling like you were hit by a truck, your body is waving a red flag.
Yeah, that's definitely a red flag.
And we should probably establish the clinical red flags right now to be safe, because some types of fatigue cross the line into requiring urgent medical care.
Absolutely. Let's make that clear.
Right. So if your exhaustion is suddenly accompanied by, say, chest pain or shortness of breath at rest, feeling faint when you stand, a fast or irregular heartbeat, or any unusual bleeding.
That's a totally different ballgame.
Exactly. That isn't a lifestyle issue. That is a cardiovascular or acute systemic crisis, and you need to go to an emergency room, not listen to a deep dive.
Completely agree. Please go to a doctor for that. But even if we strip away those acute medical emergencies, the way we handle our daily tiredness can also be this massive diagnostic clue.
Oh, for sure.
Like I was looking at this study highlighted in the geriatric data originally from JAMA Network Open, and it honestly stopped me in my tracks because it's about napping.
Yes. the napping data. It completely flips conventional wisdom on its head, doesn't it?
It really does. Because I've always thought of naps as this harmless, cozy little luxury.
Most of us do.
Right. But this study tracked over 1,000 older adults and found that excessive daytime napping, and specifically the biological need for a nap in the morning, is highly correlated with increased mortality.
It's wild.
It can actually be an early clinical indicator of cardiovascular disease or even the early stages of dementia.
And if we think about the mechanics of why, it makes perfect sense.
How so?
Well, if you wake up at 7 a.m., your circadian rhythm and your cortisol levels should be peaking. You should have maximum biological drive right then.
Right. You should be ready to go.
Exactly. So if by 10 a.m. your brain is forcing you back to sleep, your doctor isn't thinking, oh, they're just catching up on rest.
Right.
They are thinking, why is this patient's brain experiencing such severe oxygen or energy debt just 3 hours after waking up? It points to a systemic failure to clear neurotoxins or maintain oxygenation overnight.
Okay, I hear the science on the morning nap. I get that. But I have to defend the afternoon nap here.
I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, a Sunday afternoon nap is one of life's great joys. Are we really saying that taking a nap means my cardiovascular system is failing? Because that feels, I don't know, a little alarmist.
Not at all, not at all. And the distinction is entirely based on circadian biology.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the National Institute on Aging draws a very clear line here. A 20 to 30-minute nap in the early afternoon is perfectly fine.
Phew, the classic power nap.
The power nap is safe. It allows for a quick clearance of some adenosine without dropping you into the deep, slow-wave stages of sleep.
So where does it become a problem?
The danger lies in duration and timing. If you nap for over an hour or you nap late in the afternoon, two things happen. First, you wake up in the middle of a deep sleep cycle.
Oh, and you get that sleep inertia, that groggy, awful feeling.
Exactly, you feel completely disoriented. And second, you basically cannibalize your sleep pressure for the night.
Meaning you won't be tired at bedtime.
Right. You've essentially stolen the neurochemical drive you need to initiate sleep at 10 p.m., which ensures you'll have fragmented sleep that night, which just fuels the exhaustion all over again the next day.
Wow, okay, so you're basically stealing from tonight's sleep to pay for this afternoon's slump.
That's a perfect way to phrase it.
Okay, I get the mechanics of that. So if the check engine light is flashing and we've ruled out just having terrible sleep hygiene, what exactly is misfiring under the hood? I really want to look at the stealthy physical causes that tend to sneak up on us in midlife.
Yeah, we really have to become clinical detectives with our own bodies, and the data points to a few major culprits that are so common they often just hide in plain sight.
What's the first one?
The first one is anemia.
Which is funny because I've always associated anemia with pregnancy or, maybe rapid growth in teenagers.
Yeah.
Why does it suddenly become a major threat after 50?
It really comes down to gastrointestinal changes. As we age, our stomachs often produce less hydrochloric acid,
Okay.
and we also see a decrease in something called the intrinsic factor, which is a protein necessary for the absorption of vitamin B12.
So even if your diet is perfect.
Exactly. Even if you're eating plenty of iron and B12, your body is physically losing the ability to absorb it and synthesize hemoglobin.
And just to clarify, hemoglobin is the protein in red blood cells that actually carries the oxygen.
Yes. So if your hemoglobin drops, even just mildly, your tissues and your brain are operating in a state of chronic low-level hypoxia.
They're basically suffocating a little bit.
They literally aren't getting the oxygen required to create cellular energy. So you feel a profound heavy fatigue. And the geriatric data stresses that mild anemia in older adults isn't just about feeling tired.
What else does it do?
It drastically raises the risk of frailty, muscle wasting, and falls.
And that is something a basic CBC blood panel can catch in like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It kind of blows my mind how many people just suffer through that without getting a simple blood test.
It's so common.
Now, what about the thyroid? Because we all know the thyroid regulates metabolism, but what the data points out is how frequently clinical hypothyroidism actually mimics normal aging.
Yeah, that is a huge trap. So the thyroid produces hormones, primarily T4, which then has to be converted into the active form T3 to actually be used by your cells.
Okay, T4 to T3.
Right. And in midlife, obstructive sleep apnea happens when the muscles in the back of your throat, which naturally relax during sleep anyway, they relax too much. And they physically occlude your airway. You literally stop breathing.
Which has to trigger an absolute panic response in the nervous system, right?
A massive sympathetic nervous system response. Your blood oxygen levels drop, your brain senses the hypoxia, and it spikes your adrenaline to force you into a microarousal just so you can gasp for air.
And how often does this happen?
This can happen 30, 40, even 60 times an hour,
Every single night.
every single night. And you likely have zero conscious memory of waking up.
That is just wow.
But because your brain is constantly being jolted out of the deeper restorative stages of REM and slow wave sleep, your central nervous system is essentially running a marathon all night long.
So you sleep for 8 hours, but biologically you've been in a state of rolling physiological panic.
Exactly. No wonder you wake up exhausted.
That is terrifying. But there's a fourth physical culprit mentioned in the data, and this one caught me totally off guard because it involves the exact things we take to fix our health problems.
It's a compounding effect of our medication.
Yes, the medication.
We call it the anticholinergic burden and the central nervous system depressant effect.
Say that 3 times fast.
Right. But basically, as we cross 50, the pill organizer tends to get a little more crowded.
It does.
We take medications for blood pressure, maybe allergies, nerve pain, maybe a mild antidepressant.
And we look at each of those in a vacuum. Like
Mhm.
we think, okay, the blue pill is for my blood pressure, the white pill is for my allergies. We don't really think about how they interact in the brain.
But the brain is a closed chemical system. Take antihistamines, for example.
Okay.
Histamine is the chemical that triggers your allergy symptoms, right? So you take a pill to block it. But in the brain, histamine is actually a major excitatory neurotransmitter. It keeps you alert and awake.
Oh, I had no idea about that.
Yeah, and many older antihistamines cross the blood-brain barrier, block those receptors in the brain, and leave you with profound daytime somnolence.
I honestly never thought about that interaction. What about blood pressure medications?
Many antihypertensives, specifically beta blockers, work by slowing your heart rate and reducing the force of the heart muscle's contraction.
Which inherently lowers your physical stamina.
Precisely. And diuretics, or water pills, they force your body to excrete sodium and water, but they often take magnesium and potassium right out with them.
And if you don't have potassium,
If you deplete intracellular potassium, your muscles feel incredibly heavy and fatigued.
let me speak directly to you, the listener, for a second. If you recently started a new allergy pill, or maybe your doctor tweaked your blood pressure medication, and you suddenly feel like you are walking through wet cement all day, have you connected those dots?
Most people haven't.
It is so easy to just blame your own willpower or your age rather than looking at the chemistry happening right there on your bathroom counter.
And this is exactly why you have to bring your pharmacist or your doctor into the conversation, because fatigue in older adults is almost always multifactorial.
Meaning it's a bunch of small things adding up.
Right. You might have a slightly sluggish thyroid. Then pollen season hits, so you take a daily antihistamine. The medication makes you drowsy, so you stop exercising.
And then you gain weight.
Exactly. You gain 5 pounds, which is just enough added tissue in the neck to trigger mild sleep apnea.
Wow, it's a cascade failure.
Yeah.
The combination of mild physical issues and medication side effects just creates this massive energy drain.
It really does.
And that compounding effect makes me wonder about the hormonal side of things. Because while medications and thyroid issues affect everyone, there is a specific profound biological earthquake that hits half the population after 50.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to look at the endocrinology data from MIDI Health regarding menopause and midlife.
The clinical reality of menopause is staggering, and it goes so far beyond the stereotypical hot flashes.
Right, everyone just talks about the hot flashes.
But the data shows that pervasive fatigue is actually one of the most common, yet least talked about, symptoms. It affects roughly 75% of women going through the transition.
3 out of 4 women. And the MediHealth research notes that postmenopausal women report physical and mental exhaustion at 4 times the rate of premenopausal women.
4 times the rate.
So this isn't subjective. This isn't just women being stressed or doing too much. There's a massive neurochemical shift happening.
Yes.
Right.
And to understand the fatigue, we really have to understand what estrogen actually does in the brain.
Okay, lay it on me.
It is not just a reproductive hormone. It is a master metabolic regulator. Estrogen modulates the synthesis and degradation of serotonin and norepinephrine in the brain.
Wait, those are the exact neurotransmitters that manage our mood and our sleep-wake cycles, right?
Exactly. So as estrogen fluctuates wildly during perimenopause and eventually depletes entirely, those neurotransmitters are just thrown into chaos.
Wow.
And this directly impacts the hypothalamus, which basically acts as the brain's thermoregulatory center.
So it's like the body's internal thermostat.
That's a perfect analogy, and without the stabilizing presence of estrogen, that thermostat basically breaks.
Because malfunctions.
Completely. The hypothalamus falsely senses a massive, life-threatening spike in core body temperature, and it triggers an emergency cooling protocol.
Even if you aren't actually hot.
Right. It dilates the blood vessels to dump heat and triggers massive sweating. When this happens at night, it's a night sweat.
That's the worst.
The woman wakes up drenched, freezing cold, with her heart pounding because of the adrenaline release. Her sleep architecture is completely shattered.
And even if you aren't waking up in a pool of sweat, you might still be waking up. I was really fascinated by the data MIDI Health provided on the urinary tract.
The bladder issues, yeah.
They found that 76% of women over 40 develop nocturia, which is waking up at least once a night to pee.
The mechanism there is incredibly frustrating for patients.
Why does that happen?
Well, the trigone, which is the smooth triangular region at the base of the bladder, and the urethra are absolutely packed with estrogen receptors.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, so when systemic estrogen drops, those mucosal tissues actually atrophy. They thin out, they lose their elasticity, and they become hypersensitive.
So it's a physical change in the bladder.
Yes. The bladder physically cannot hold the same volume of urine without sending an urgent distress signal to the brain.
Which leads to sleep maintenance insomnia.
Yeah.
You might fall asleep fine, but you wake up at 2 a.m. to use the bathroom, and because your serotonin is also dysregulated, your brain just boots up.
Yep, you're wide awake.
You just lay there staring at the ceiling for 2 hours.
And while estrogen is wreaking havoc on the thermostat and the bladder, two other critical hormones are plummeting at the exact same time: progesterone and melatonin.
Now, I feel like melatonin gets all the press, but let's talk about progesterone, because that seems to be the true unsung hero of sleep.
Progesterone is essentially the body's endogenous relaxing hormone. In the brain, its metabolites interact with GABA receptors, and GABA is the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. It calms the central nervous system down, it reduces anxiety, and it promotes deep sleep.
So it's a natural sedative.
Exactly. But when progesterone production drops to near zero after menopause, women lose that natural neurochemical sedative.
And right alongside it, the melatonin production from the pineal gland is also calcifying and dropping off. So the body loses its signal that it's actually time to sleep.
Exactly. And the real cruelty of this hormonal shift is that while the calming, sleep-promoting hormones are dropping, the stress hormones are actively rebelling.
Oh no, like cortisol.
Cortisol, the primary stress hormone produced by the adrenal glands. It's supposed to follow a very strict curve. It should peak sharply in the morning to get you out of bed and steadily decline, so it's at its absolute lowest at midnight.
But the midlife data shows that curve basically inverts for so many people.
Yes. The HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, becomes dysregulated.
What does that actually feel like?
Well, cortisol levels often flatline during the day, which leaves you totally lethargic and then bizarrely spike in the evening. You get that classic tired but wired feeling.
Oh, I know that feeling so well.
Your body is physically exhausted, but your brain feels like it just drank 3 espressos.
I was trying to visualize this while reading the research. It's almost like if you think of your biology as an orchestra, the conductor just walked off the stage.
I love that.
Right, the brass section, the cortisol just blaring at 2 a.m., and the string section, the melatonin and progesterone, have literally packed up their instruments and left the building.
That is a phenomenal analogy. It is a complete biological cacophony, and it leads to a very dangerous secondary complication that often goes entirely undiagnosed. Think back to what we discussed about sleep apnea a few minutes ago.
Okay, the airway muscles collapsing, causing the oxygen drop.
Look at the data from MIDI Health on this. The prevalence of obstructive sleep apnea leaps to between 47% and 67% in postmenopausal women.
Wait, almost 70%? Wait, how does losing reproductive hormones cause a mechanical breathing issue in your throat? That doesn't seem to connect.
It connects directly through progesterone.
Really?
Remember how we said progesterone is a relaxant? Well, it also has a secondary function as a powerful respiratory stimulant.
Oh, wow.
It helps maintain the muscle tone of the upper airway during sleep. When a woman loses that progesterone, she loses that respiratory drive and airway protection. The tissue becomes more prone to collapsing.
So you have a woman who is dealing with night sweats, thinning bladder tissue, soaring midnight cortisol, and she has suddenly lost the muscle tone in her airway, so she's stopping breathing 30 times a night.
Yes.
It is an absolute travesty that women aren't routinely screened for this at their annual checkups.
It is a massive gap in standard care. But this is also exactly why the clinical solutions are so effective. The data is incredibly strong regarding the efficacy of menopause hormone therapy, or MHT, which we previously called HRT.
It seems like it's literally putting the conductor back in front of the orchestra.
That is exactly what it does. By supplementing systemic estrogen, you stabilize the hypothalamus and eliminate the vasomotor symptoms, the night sweats.
Okay, that handles the thermostat.
And by utilizing micronized progesterone at night, you provide that GABA receptor stimulation, which delivers a natural sedative effect while protecting the airway.
And what about the bladder issues? The nocturia?
Localized vaginal estrogen therapy. It doesn't even have to be systemic. A local cream or ring can physically restore the elasticity and thickness of the trigone tissue, dramatically reducing urgency and cutting down on those 2 a.m. bathroom trips.
That's incredible.
The clinical outcomes show that appropriate hormone therapy can reduce menopause-related insomnia by up to 90%.
90%. Look, if you are a woman listening to this right now and you have been white-knuckling your way through this exhaustion, convinced you just need more willpower, please hear this. There are actual, measurable biological mechanisms at play, and there are safe, evidence-based medical solutions available. You do not have to suffer through a decade of sleep deprivation.
No, you absolutely don't. The physical and hormonal realities are profound. But, we would be doing a massive disservice to the listener if we stopped there.
Because of the mental load.
Exactly. We have to talk about the psychological and emotional load, the allostatic load.
Yeah.
Sometimes your cells have enough oxygen and your hormones are perfectly balanced, but your body is vibrating with exhaustion because your mind is running an absolute marathon.
The psychological weight of midlife is just crushing. If you look at the demographic realities outlined by the NIA, midlife is the ultimate pressure cooker.
Without a doubt.
You are likely at the absolute peak of your career, dealing with maximum professional demands and responsibilities.
And simultaneously, you are squarely in the sandwich generation.
Right. You are trying to manage the complex health crises and the emotional decline of your aging parents.
Yes.
You might have adult children who are struggling financially, or maybe they're moving back home. You're trying to figure out if you actually have enough money to retire. And inevitably, 50 is the decade where we start encountering profound grief.
It really is.
The loss of peers, the loss of parents, the shifting of our own identities. It's so much to carry.
And culturally, we tend to build a firewall between the mental and the physical. We tell ourselves, well, I'm stressed, but that's just in my head. Why are my legs so heavy? Why can't I physically get out of a chair?
Don't connect them.
Right. What we have to understand is the neurobiology of stress. Emotional stress requires massive amounts of cellular energy to maintain.
I want to dig into that, actually, because I think people use the word stress so casually. How does worrying about my 401k actually drain the physical ATP from my cells?
It all comes back to the autonomic nervous system. When your brain is ruminating on a threat, even an abstract financial threat, it activates the sympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
Your amygdala basically sounds the alarm. Your body initiates a low-grade fight or flight response. Your heart rate variability drops, your blood pressure elevates slightly, your digestion slows down, and your muscles maintain a subtle, constant tension.
It's like sitting in your driveway in park, but you have the accelerator pressed to the floor, holding the engine at 5,000 RPMs all day long.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are burning through your physical metabolic reserves just sitting at your desk. And the downstream effect of that is devastating.
Because it affects your sleep, right?
Yes. When you finally get into bed, your nervous system is bathed in adrenaline and cortisol. You cannot physically transition into the parasympathetic rest and digest state required for deep sleep.
So you wake up with an even smaller battery the next day, facing the exact same stressors.
A vicious cycle. And the geriatric data makes a really crucial distinction here regarding how depression presents in older adults, because it often flies completely under the radar.
It really does.
We have this stereotypical image of depression as, profound sadness, weeping, or visible despair. But in adults over 50, depression frequently presents somatically.
Meaning it manifests as physical symptoms.
Purely physical. They might not feel sad at all. Instead, they experience a total loss of executive function, anhedonia, which is the inability to feel pleasure, and profound, heavy, paralyzing fatigue.
So it's biology again.
Yes. The inflammatory cytokines associated with depression actually induce what biologists call sickness behavior. It forces the body into a state of lethargy to conserve energy.
Wow.
If a patient tells their doctor, I just don't have the physical stamina to see my grandkids anymore, a good geriatrician is going to screen for depression immediately.
I want to talk directly to you, the listener, for a second, with the deepest empathy I can muster. If you were walking around like a zombie right now because you spent your morning coordinating home care for a parent with dementia and your afternoon worrying about your own retirement and your evening trying to keep your marriage connected,
Right.
please cut yourself some slack.
Absolutely.
You aren't just tired because you're getting older, you are carrying the weight of the world. Your exhaustion is a completely rational biological response to the immense load you are bearing.
Validating that reality, recognizing the allostatic load, is the absolute necessary first step before you can even begin to heal.
Okay, so we have the diagnosis. We've looked at the oxygen transport, the thyroid, the sleep architecture, the hormones, and the mental load. Now, we have to talk about what we can actually do about it.
Let's get into it.
I want to dedicate this entire final section to building a practical, evidence-based action plan. What can the listener actually execute this week to start getting their energy back?
Well, the clinical consensus is that fixing systemic fatigue requires a multi-pronged approach.
No magic pill, then.
No magic pill that will override poor lifestyle architecture, unfortunately. And across the board, the geriatric and endocrinology sources point to nutrition as the foundational layer, specifically the Mediterranean diet framework.
Now, I feel like every health podcast on earth tells people to eat the Mediterranean diet for heart health. But I want to know how it specifically fights fatigue at a cellular level. What is it actually doing?
It's all about metabolic stability and mitochondrial repair. The Mediterranean framework is inherently low in simple refined sugars and high in complex carbohydrates, fiber, and specific polyphenols from olive oil and dark berries.
Okay, so what happens when you eat differently?
When you eat refined carbs, you spike your insulin, which leads to a massive hypoglycemic crash 2 hours later. That is the classic 2 p.m. slump.
Oh, I know that's slow.
Right. But the complex fibers in the Mediterranean diet create a slow, metered release of glucose into the bloodstream, which provides steady ATP production all day long.
And what about the microbiome aspect? Because I know gut health shifts dramatically in midlife.
That is a crucial piece. Up to 90% of your body's serotonin, that neurotransmitter we need for mood and sleep, is actually synthesized in the gut by your microbiome.
90%.
Yeah. But those bacteria require very specific types of prebiotic fiber to do their job. The diversity of plants in the Mediterranean diet physically feeds the bacteria that produce the precursors to your sleep hormones.
Okay, so what we eat is vital, but the data also heavily emphasizes when we eat, particularly regarding GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease.
Yes. Timing is everything. As we age, the lower esophageal sphincter, which is the muscular valve between the stomach and the esophagus, often loses some of its tone.
Okay.
So if you eat a large, high-fat or acidic meal right before laying down, gravity is no longer keeping the stomach acid in place.
And we aren't just talking about agonizing heartburn that wakes you up clutching your chest, right?
What?
The silent reflux is the real sneaky culprit.
Silent reflux is incredibly disruptive. You might not feel a burn at all. Micro droplets of acid can aspirate into the upper airway.
Just a tiny bit of acid.
Yes, and it causes a tiny cough, a throat tickle, or a subtle airway spasm. It is enough of a noxious stimulus to yank your brain out of deep sleep, causing dozens of microarousals.
And you have no idea it's happening.
Exactly. You wake up exhausted, assuming you slept terribly, with no idea your late-night spicy meal was the trigger. The rule is rigid here.
Yeah.
A strict 3-hour fasting buffer before your head hits the pillow.
3 hours. Okay, now we have to enter the danger zone. We have to talk about the two biggest crutches we all use to manage our daily energy: caffeine and alcohol.
The big ones.
And I am speaking to myself here as much as anyone else. Let's start with caffeine, because I am highly dependent on my morning coffee.
Caffeine is a brilliant tool, but we completely misunderstand its pharmacokinetics.
How so?
Caffeine works by physically binding to and blocking the adenosine receptors in the brain. It doesn't actually give you energy, it just deafens your brain to the signal that you are tired.
Right. And adenosine is that sleep pressure chemical we talked about building up all day.
Exactly. But here is the problem. Caffeine has a half-life of roughly 5 to 6 hours in most adults, and that metabolism slows down as we age.
So it sticks around longer.
Yes. If you drink a cup of coffee at 4 p.m. to push through the end of the workday, by 10 p.m., Fully half of that caffeine is still actively circulating in your central nervous system, aggressively blocking those sleep receptors.
So your physical body is utterly exhausted, the adenosine is built up, but your brain is chemically blinded to it and thinks it's time to run a marathon.
It creates profound sleep onset insomnia. The clinical mandate is the caffeine curfew. You must cease all caffeine consumption, and that includes sneaky sources like iced tea, cola, and dark chocolate by 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. at the absolute latest.
Ugh, I can manage a 3 p.m. curfew. I can switch to sparkling water. But now we have to talk about alcohol.
I know.
And I had to push back a little here. A glass of wine while watching TV at 9 p.m. feels like the only reward I get after a brutal day. It relaxes me. It helps me wind down. Are the clinicians really saying I have to give up my nightcap?
I know it is a deeply unpopular clinical reality, but we have to look at the neurochemistry of what alcohol actually does to sleep architecture.
Okay, tell me the bad news.
It is true that alcohol is a central nervous system depressant. It enhances GABA, which means it will absolutely help you lose consciousness faster. You will pass out.
Which feels like a win when you're stressed.
It feels like a win for the first 3 hours. But your liver is metabolizing that alcohol. As the alcohol clears your system in the middle of the night, your brain experiences a miniature acute withdrawal.
Wait, withdrawal?
Yes. To counter the depressant effect of the alcohol, your brain flooded the system with glutamate, which is an excitatory neurotransmitter.
Oh, wow.
So at 3 a.m., the alcohol is gone, but the excitatory glutamate is still there. Your heart rate spikes, your body temperature rises, you start sweating, and you jolt awake.
That 3 a.m. wake up is so real.
And more importantly, alcohol violently suppresses REM sleep, which is the exact stage where your brain consolidates memories and repairs neural pathways.
So you pass out quickly, but you trade away the exact neurological repair process you need to have any physical or mental energy the next day.
Exactly. You are trading a 20-minute dopamine reward at 9 p.m. for a completely dysfunctional, exhausted day tomorrow. For anyone over 50 struggling with severe fatigue, eliminating alcohol, or at least moving it to early evening and keeping it to a single serving, is the fastest, most effective intervention you can make.
That is sobering, literally and figuratively. Okay, so we are cutting out late meals, afternoon caffeine, and nightcaps. What can we proactively add into our biology to help? Let's talk about strategic supplementation.
And we should caveat that everyone needs to check with their doctor before starting anything new.
Yes, absolutely. Please consult your physician.
The clinical data points to several compounds that actually support sleep architecture rather than forcing it chemically like a prescription sleeping pill. Tart cherry juice is highly recommended.
I've seen that trend everywhere. Why tart cherry juice specifically?
Montmorency tart cherries contain high levels of naturally occurring melatonin precursors and tryptophan.
Oh, okay.
A small glass in the evening gently nudges the body's natural sleep pathways without the massive synthetic spike you get from over-the-counter melatonin pills, which often leave people feeling hungover.
What about magnesium? Because that seems to be the universal recommendation right now for everything from headaches to cramps.
Magnesium is a critical cofactor in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body. But specifically, you want magnesium glycinate for sleep.
Glycinate, got it.
The glycine molecule allows it to cross the blood-brain barrier effectively. Once there, it blocks the NMDA receptors, which quiets down the nervous system, and it helps relax skeletal muscle. If you suffer from restless legs or physical tension at night, magnesium glycinate is a powerful tool.
And what about that cortisol issue we discussed earlier, when the stress hormone spikes at midnight?
For HPA axis dysregulation, the endocrinology data suggests exploring adaptogens, specifically ashwagandha.
I've heard of that. What does an adaptogen actually do?
Adaptogens are unique botanical compounds that don't push the body in one specific direction. Rather, they modulate the stress response.
They balance it.
Exactly. Clinical trials show that regular use of ashwagandha can significantly lower serum cortisol levels over time, improving stress resilience and reducing that midnight wired feeling. L-theanine, an amino acid found in green tea, is also excellent for promoting alpha brainwaves, which are associated with relaxed focus.
Okay, so we have the nutrition, the curfews, the supplements. I have to bring up movement.
Movement is critical.
Because I have to be completely honest. When I read the NIA's recommendation that exercise cures fatigue, I actually got a little angry.
I hear that all the time.
When my fatigue is peaking, when my battery is at 1%, the absolute last thing I am physically capable of doing is putting on running shoes. How on earth does the medical community expect someone with zero energy to generate the massive energy required to exercise.
It is the ultimate clinical paradox of fatigue. You are too exhausted to move, but the lack of movement is actively destroying your cellular energy capacity.
Explain that biology to me.
Here is the biological reality. Exercise stimulates mitochondrial
It
biogenesis.
builds new cellular power plants.
Exactly. When you demand energy from your muscles, your body responds by building more mitochondria to meet that demand. If you remain sedentary, your body prunes those mitochondria to conserve resources. You literally lose your physiological capacity to generate energy.
Wow. Use it or lose it at a cellular level.
Precisely. But the key for older adults isn't starting with high-intensity interval training. It's starting with a 15-minute brisk walk.
Just 15 minutes.
But the timing is the critical variable for sleep.
Right, because if you work out at 8 p.m., you're flooding the system with adrenaline.
Adrenaline, cortisol, and most importantly, core body temperature. To initiate sleep, your core body temperature has to drop by about 2 degrees.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and strenuous exercise elevates your core temperature for hours. The NIA mandate is a strict 3-hour buffer between any cardiovascular exercise and bedtime. If you need to move at night, it must be restorative yin yoga, light stretching, activities that actively lower your heart rate and engage the parasympathetic nervous system.
Okay, this has been an incredible amount of information. We've gone from cellular hypoxia to hormonal collapse to the neurochemistry of a glass of wine.
Oh, we really covered a lot.
We did. But before we wrap up, I want to land on the single most practical piece of advice from all this geriatric data, specifically regarding how to talk to your doctor. Because if you just walk into a 15-minute appointment and say, "I'm tired," you are going to get dismissed.
You will likely get a generic prescription for a sedative or be told to lose weight. The most powerful tool you have to change that dynamic is the fatigue diary.
Moving from subjective complaints to objective data.
Exactly. The NIA advises tracking your biological metrics meticulously for 14 days before your appointment. You don't need a fancy app. Use a notebook.
What exactly are we tracking?
Track your exact sleep latency, how long it takes to fall asleep. Note every time you wake up. But crucially, track your daytime metrics. At what exact hour does your energy crash? How many milligrams of caffeine did you consume, and at what time? How many ounces of alcohol did you drink? Did you experience shortness of breath when walking up the stairs?
So when you walk into your primary care doctor's office and hand them 14 days of tracked metabolic and behavioral data, you completely alter the power dynamic of that visit.
That changes everything.
You give them the map to find the blind spots.
Yeah.
You move from being a complaining patient to an active investigator of your own health.
It is the definition of health advocacy. It forces the physician to look for the multifactorial causes rather than brushing you off with a platitude about aging.
I love that. Okay, as we bring this deep dive in for a landing, we promise to always leave you with one concrete thing you can do right now. It is time for our key takeaways. I'll go first.
Let's hear it.
For me, the most actionable shift is implementing that 3 p.m. caffeine curfew. It costs absolutely nothing. I'm going to set a daily recurring alarm on my phone for 2:45 p.m., and after that, it is strictly sparkling water or herbal tea. Given the 5-hour half-life we talked about, just clearing that adenosine receptor blockade could completely change the depth of my sleep tonight. What about you? What's your top takeaway?
I am going to advocate for the fatigue diary. Start it tomorrow morning. Just take a simple piece of paper and track 3 things for the next week. When you consume caffeine, when you consume alcohol, and the specific time of day you feel the absolute most exhausted. We all have massive behavioral blind spots, and seeing your own habits written out in data is often the catalyst required to actually change them.
That is brilliant advice. Look, here is what I want you to take away from today more than anything else. You are not too old. You are not too far behind. And you are absolutely not alone in feeling this way. That is exactly why we show up here every Tuesday and Thursday. Please subscribe to the show so you never miss a deep dive. Leave us a review if today helped you understand your body a little better. And share this specific episode with someone in your life who is carrying a heavy load and needs to hear it.
There is so much more to explore when it comes to optimizing our health and happiness in this decade, and we are just scratching the surface.
We really are. And next time we are diving into something that is stressing out absolutely everyone right now and probably spiking all of our cortisol. We are talking about the checkout aisle. Make sure you're subscribed for your grocery bill. Isn't your fault. Tariffs, inflation, and 8 ways to fight back. You won't want to miss that one.
That is going to be an incredibly eye-opening conversation.
It really is.
Well,
So to all of you listening to Thrive After 50 Living, until next time, live well, stay strong, and always remember your best years are still ahead.